don't use pizza cutters. They would prefer to use shears. So, any other questions? You? All right. Well, today, my main objective today is I ultimately really want to increase your belief in the product. And the whole concept behind is if you truly believe in the product, do you think your customers can tell without you being like, oh, by the way, I really believe in this stuff? Right? You know, it's like if you ever got to a restaurant before and you asked a server about something on the menu, you're like, you know, how is that? And they're like, I mean, it's good. Yeah. Versus like every once in a while the server, you ask, you're like, you know, how is that? And they're like, oh my gosh, it's phenomenal. Everybody loves it. I order it probably once a week, but you'll love it. Yeah, I'll get that. Like you feel so much more confident ordering it when you can tell they really think it's incredible, right? 93%, or I should say that 7% of what you communicate is the words you're using. 93% of what you communicate is everything else. Your body language, your voice inflection, your tone. That's really what communicates that. The only way to really be able to do that is if you actually believe it at your core. So that's first and foremost my main objective today, is I really want you to understand the value of the product and why people need it, why they want it. And that's my main objective. So what I want to do first, I want to go over other brands of cutlery that you're going to come across while you're out there, just so you know what's out there. Now, I'm not going to spend tons and tons of time talking about like infomercial knives, because the reality is you're not going to see it a lot. You're going to see it maybe a handful of times while you're out there, but that's not where you're going to see the majority of the time. And I'll show you them. I'll show you what they look like. They're frankly really low quality knives, but it's just not where you're going to see most of the time. I'm going to spend most of my time here in the beginning talking about the knives that you're actually going to see while you're out there. Now, really important today, take really, really good notes on anything that I'm putting up here on the board. If I'm putting it on the board, I'll just say this. There's nothing I'm putting on the board that you shouldn't write down today. And so if it's on the board, you should write it down. Now, there's going to be some sections in your manual that correlate with what I'm going to be talking about tonight. So this first section is actually one of those. So turn to page 48 in your manual. And let's talk about high quality knives first. So these are actually the knives that we would actually consider to be a competitor. This is the good stuff. So first off, if you were going to go out and buy a set of high quality knives for yourself, what store did you go to?
That one in the mall.
Yeah, Williams-Sonoma in Boise, probably your best bet. There are also cutlery shops where they sell like specifically cutlery and like swords and things like that. A lot of times they will carry really top line cutlery. We don't have any of those in Boise anymore. We used to, but the one that we did have in the mall closed. And so Williams-Sonoma is probably your best bet here in Boise. Now, so if you want to put where to buy, Williams-Sonoma is what I would write down. Williams-Sonoma. It's like right in the center of the mall, like right where Santa was. Okay, now there's 3 brands that you're going to come across as far as high quality brands. You're going to see probably more than any of the other brands out there. Michael, you make sure that's going to the camera.
Oh yeah, it's on.
Alright, just making sure. Alright, the 3 main brands you're going to see are Wüsthof, technically if you want to be correct, German, they pronounce their W as like a V, it's Wüsthof, but Wüsthof, Henkel's, and Shun, or Shun, S-H-U-N. Now, Wüsthof and Henkel's are both, for where it's made, are both made in Germany, and Shun is made in Japan. So, Wüsthof, Henkel's are Germany, Shun is Japan. Henkel's and Wüsthof have both been around for over 250 years. They've been around a really long time. They are the 2 most well-known companies in the world on a global level, and those are the ones you're probably going to see the most often as far as like top of the line cutlery. Now, Shun's only been around for about 8 years or so you don't see it a lot, but it is out there. Now, in terms of, I'm just going to show you a couple of these knives first. This is a Wüsthof knife right here, and yes, Tom.
Rather than the interest, where would you buy it?
Where did I say?
Williams-Sonoma.
Get it?
Yes.
There you go. Alright. So this is a Wüsthof knife right here. And you'll notice, like, right when you feel them, like, they're really hefty. They've got some good weight to them, and you can tell they're high quality just when you pick it up. That's true with a lot of products out there. When they're really nice, you can tell pretty much immediately. This is a Henkel's knife right here. This has a bunch of nicks in the blade. That's not normal. That is the result of a sword fight from a couple assistant managers a few years ago. Not good on your knives. This is a Henkel's paring knife right here. I want to mention though that there is something known as Henkel's International. And Henkel's International is basically what happened is Henkel's years ago licensed their name to any company that would be willing to pay them a royalty. And so there's lots of companies that make Henkel's International. They're very low quality knives, and they just charge a lot more for them because it says Henkel's on it. Typically, if you go into Costco or Macy's or Target and you see Henkel's, it's never really the good stuff. It's always Henkel's International. You'll typically only see genuine Henkel's in Williams-Sonoma. And so a lot of the time when you see Henkel's in someone's house, it's not actually the good stuff. It's just the knockoff Henkel's International. There's 3 ways to tell. If it's made anywhere outside of Germany, it's not genuine Henkel's. So sometimes it'll say German steel on it, like this knife right here, for example. Not this one. I thought I had it out. I'll probably find it here in a little bit, but basically, sometimes they'll say German steel made in China or German steel made in Taiwan, and they'll call it German steel, but it's not made there. So if it's not made in Germany, it's not genuine. Also, look at the symbol. If it's 2 guys, it's genuine. If it's 1 guy standing by himself, it's Henkel's International. And then the other dead giveaway is just the word international. You ever see that word on there? It's Henkel's International. You're never going to see that on the genuine Henkel's right there. And so you can tell right when you pick them up. There is also a big difference between genuine Henkel's and Henkel's International. In terms of the specifics here, for the handle material that they use, I'm going to have you write down 2 materials. The first one is polypropylene. The other one is laminated wood. Now, polypropylene is basically what we make our cutting boards out of. And it's just a high-grade plastic, definitely better than wood, definitely better than just like a regular plastic. But there's 2 downsides to it. One, it's not dishwasher safe. And 2, if anything happens to it, like it's a chip or a scratch in it, it's always going to be like that. You're never going to be able to do anything about it. It's always going to be that way. And so that's one of the other downsides to it. Now, laminated wood is a wood handle. They just put a laminate finish around it. So it's more sanitary. However, it's also not dishwasher safe. You put it in the dishwasher, it will put cracks in the seal, and it's going to eventually just wear out. At that point in time, become like a normal wood handle. In terms of the construction that they use, I'm going to generalize it and say they use a good construction. I'm not going to say because they don't all technically have a full tank. For example, if you look at, I see this knife really quick, Robert. So like this Henkel's knife right here, you guys will notice it's not technically a full tang. Like you can't see the blade running through the handle. And guys, just trust me that if a company has a full tang, they'll show off that it's a full tang. They're not going to make it look like a partial tang if it's not. So even though this knife feels like it's really heavy in the handle, and it's got something there, it's a lead weight that they put right here, and it makes it feel like it's got something going all the way through. And it's really just weighted down, but this is really just a separate piece that they just attach to the actual metal there. However, it's still a really well-made knife, and it's not going to just break on you. And if you're using it for what it's supposed to be used for, which is chopping vegetables, it really shouldn't. It shouldn't break. And so they do use a good construction on their knives. They make them very well. But anyways, so what's the next thing on there?
Blade.
All right, so I'm going to put steel, but the steel that they use is a high carbon stainless steel, similar to the grade of steel that we use. We use a 440 grade A. They use a 440 grade C. You know, it's still a good steel. You know, it's not the best, but it's still a good steel. Now, in terms of the edge, they use primarily straight edges. Now typically you're still gonna see a set of like Wusthof and Henkel's that will still have like a serrated knife in the set for like bread and things like that. But in terms of mostly, they're typically straight edges. Now, does anyone in here know how often they recommend that you sharpen a high quality straight edge?
Once a year.
Once a month, once a year?
Every 3 years?
Cut. This came with the Wusthof knife when we bought it. There's a little thing in here about keeping it sharp. And it says, to ensure top performance, it's a good idea to hone the blade with a sharpening or a honing steel before each use.
Wow.
Okay? So, I recommend you sharpen it every time you use it for the best performance. Now, if you think about it, how many average families sharpen their knives every single time they're using it? I'd say almost none. There are people who do, by the way. And, you know, in 2 years doing appointments, I had probably maybe 2-3 people that I came across that actually did do that. And every single one of them was a chef at one point in their life. And that's how they were trained when they went through culinary school. And in many cases, they love sharpening knives. They like having really sharp knives, so they love sharpening their knives. And so they did it all. But I'd say most people don't sharpen their knives. Most people don't even know how to sharpen knives. And so, but that's the edges that they use. What's the next thing on there?
Guarantee.
Okay, for the guarantee covers defects only. Alright, defects only. Now, what that means, you purchase it, if you take it out of the package, and there is something wrong with it, there's a defect, it's covered. They will replace that. There is nothing else covered under their guarantee. Okay? And Wusthof, I printed off both warranties here for Wusthof and Henkel's, so you guys can see this. But it says Wusthof cutlery is fully warranted to be free of defects in material or craftsmanship. Any item that's claimed as defective must be returned to us for inspection. Our warranty does not apply if the damage is due to what we define as normal wear or use other than the intended purpose of the item. For example, if it gets a bent tip or a broken tip. Which, by the way, do people like drop knives off their counters and bend tips, or do like little kids do things with knives that they shouldn't and hurt the knives? Yes. Broken or chipped blades, melted handles, deteriorating wood handles. It's really interesting what they say about their wood handles. It says it's very difficult to guarantee materials found in nature. Given their age, their unavoidable exposure to moisture, and even the occasional trip through the dishwasher, these handles will assuredly begin to break down. We cannot offer handle replacements. Edge or damage created by manual or mechanical sharpening devices or sharpening professionals. Dull knives, or knives that claim to be unsharpenable, which, by the way, they eventually will get to that point. Eventually, every knife will. And it says under that one, it says, we can assure you that a Wusthof knife, or any other high-quality knife for that matter, whose edge has not been cared for on a regular basis, which, what's the regular basis that they're referring to? Every use. Will eventually become dull and unusable. And then once it's reached that point, only the services of a qualified sharpening professional using proper equipment will restore the factory edge, which, by the way, they do not offer that service. So they will not resharpen it or regrind an edge for you. So you can take it to another professional who can regrind an edge for you and pay for that. But they do not offer the service. Shun does, but it's $20 to $50 for each knife that has to have edge regrinded or even sharpened. So Shun will do it, but you have to pay for every single knife. And so that's Wustof's guarantee. And then Henkel's is pretty much the exact same. Yeah, Henkel's pretty much the exact same. And so that's their guarantee. That was one of the biggest things to me that like really shocked me. Because like these are awesome knives, guys. I'm not gonna say they're not. They're great knives. But they're still gonna wear out, and people will buy them over and over and over again over a lifetime because they're not covered, and eventually they're gonna wear out. Now, how long do they last? Average 5 to 10 years. 5 to 10 years. Now, if you take care of them the way that they recommend you take care of them, which is never put them in a dishwasher ever, sharpen them by hand every time you use them, it's probably going to last 15, 20 years. And I should say this, and never put them in a drawer. They should always be in a drawer or a tray. They'll probably last 15, 20 years. If you're like most humans, where they don't necessarily take care of them perfectly, it's probably going to be about 5 to 10 years for most people. Now, in terms of prices, I'm curious too, has anyone in here ever actually gone out and like priced high quality cutlery before? Looked at like what it goes for? Okay. Well, these prices are probably going to be a little surprising to you if you've never actually gone out and looked at it before. So, Williams-Sonoma, how many of you have been in Williams-Sonoma before? Okay, a few of you have. Alright, so Williams-Sonoma, it's a store in the mall. It's really top of the line kitchen store. They sell like the best of pretty much anything you'd put in a kitchen. They don't sell like low quality anything. And it's a really cool store. Knives is one of the products that they sell as well. And, you know, just to show you a few examples here. For a Wusthof, I'll start with Wusthof here. Wusthof, their small set, and don't write these prices down just yet, because I'm going to give you some averages here. I just want to kind of give you guys some ideas of like different ranges here, so you guys can kind of get a feel for this. But for their 10-piece set, which is not 10 knives, it's just 10 pieces. One of the pieces is a wok, one's a sharpener, one's a cutting board, one's a shears. Their 10-piece set, if you look at the picture, it's a set that has slots for steak knives, but there's no steak knives in the set. So that's kind of how they take like a medium-sized set and make it a small set, is they just take out the steak knives. And so for their small set, it's $800. It's on sale for $450. For their medium set, it's $1,600 on sale for $950. And then for their 22-piece, which are Homemaker's 21 pieces, to kind of put it in perspective. Okay, so the Homemaker's 21, our Ultimate's 37. But their 22-piece is $3,500 on sale for $2,000. Okay, so that's for Wusthof. Shunt is actually the most expensive of the three. Henkel's is very similar to Wusthof in terms of prices. Shunt is definitely more expensive than both of them. But for a Shun 8-piece set, which is 6 knives, a block, and a sharpener, $1,700 on sale for $1,200. Their 11-piece is $2,300 on sale for $1,600, and their 19-piece set is $4,000 on sale for $2,800. Okay. Now, by the way, Shun just came out. I'm pretty confident they did this because of Cutco. Just came out with a 37-piece set. It just came out this year, and if you look at it, it's where is it? Wusthof. Their 37-piece set is $6,000 on sale for $4,000. I'm about to get into it. I'm going to go over all of them. So, I just want to give you guys an idea of what like we're competing with before I tell you how much Cutco is, because you might pee your pants if I just told you the price right off. So, all right. So that's for Shun. Henkel's, I'll just let you look at it. Very similar to Wusthof. So in terms of their small sets, here's the range I would write down. For a small set, $400 to $700. A medium-sized set, you're looking at $700 to $1,200. And then for a large set, you're looking at about $1,200 to about $3,000. Okay. Now, how many of you, those prices are really surprising to you?
Those are outrageous.
Okay? Some of you are like, that's absolutely ridiculous crazy. Like, you can't comprehend that people actually buy this. By the way, top selling brand in stores. Top selling brand in stores. So, people absolutely buy it. You don't understand it because you're not in the market for it. And there's a really big difference. And I'll talk about that here in a second. But I want you to keep in mind that, one, these are the best that you can buy in a store. This is literally the best in the world. It's like when you compare like a BMW to, you know, a Kia. Big difference, right? When you compare a Ferrari to a Kia, there's a big difference between the best and the cheapest. Between Walmart and this is a big difference. So yes, this is the best, but also, this might be crazy for you to think about, but think about the families that you guys know, and think about some of the things that they actually did spend money on in their kitchen already. You know, how much is it for like a decent fridge?
$3,000.
Yeah, I'd say like $1,500 to $3,000, you know. Now, by the way, that's not the best fridge. That's a decent fridge. That's a good fridge. The best fridges are like $5,000 to $7,000, right? Now, how about a dining room table? You know, a dining room table, you know, like on low end, you're looking at like $700. High end, you're looking at like $2,000. You know, how many of you, when you were a little kid, your parents freaked out on you when you'd like sit back in the chairs? They always told you because they didn't want you to crack your head. That's not why they wanted you to not be back in the chair, you guys. That wood chair probably cost $200. You know, like nice wood chairs are like $150 to $250 a piece.
They can go as high as like 800.
They can't. They can't. My parents had like, you know, they've had a table for like the last 15, 20 years, and like each chair was $250. You know, and they've got 8 chairs, and that was something, but they've had the chairs like 20 years. But, you know, nice wood chairs cost money. A nice dining room table. How about even like a new like dishwasher? People spend $400 or $500 on a dishwasher, or an oven. People get a new oven range and spend $1,000, $15 on a new oven. How many of you know someone that has a KitchenAid mixer? Okay. Yeah. By the way, how many of you know someone that's not rich that owns a KitchenAid mixer? Right? And do you know how much they go for? No, they're not 1,000. They're like $350. It's like $350 to $450, depending on like what attachments you go with. But yeah, they're like $350 to $450. Why do you buy them? Because it's nice to have it. It's nice not to have to mix the batter the whole time yourself. It makes it easier. Makes life better. Especially for someone who likes to bake. It's a really nice thing to have. And so, you know, how many of you know someone that's ever put like new counters in their kitchen? Alright. By the way, how many of you know someone that's not rich that put new counters in their kitchen? Okay. By the way, new counters are usually like $3,000 to $7,000, depending on like, and sometimes even up to like $15,000, depending on like if it's granite, marble, and things like that. Costs a lot. You know, even the average like small kitchen with granite counters is like $4,000 to $6,000. You know, that's average. Or like when someone has a really old house, sometimes they'll do like new cabinets. You know, people will spend $10,000 to $20,000 on cabinets. Yeah, if you install it yourself. You know, people literally will sometimes pay $30,000 for cabinets or new floors. And so, you know, people do, the kitchen is actually probably where more money is spent in the house than almost any other room in the whole house is in the kitchen. And so, you know, people do spend money in the kitchen. You know, it's sometimes hard to equate it if you've never like actually gone out and like looked at it before and looked at what the best stuff costs. But I just want to give you guys an idea on like what it actually goes for. So this is the good stuff. Now, let's talk about low quality knives really fast too. I would not even say Walmart. We're getting there, but this is low quality. So these are, in terms of where to buy, just put department stores. These are the knives that you're finding at like Target, JCPenney, Dillard's, Macy's, Bed Bath & Beyond. All of those pretty much is where you're going to see these brands here. Now, the reality is, guys, I could list like probably 60 brands up here that would fall under this banner. I'm going to list like the 4 or 5 that you're probably going to see the most often, and they're all kind of similar. So the first one is Chicago. Has anyone in here ever heard of Chicago Cutlery? Okay. Like 4 of you are raising your hands after I show them to you. Probably half of you are going to be like, oh, that's what we own. Okay. So this is a Chicago knife right here. 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 Any of you guys seen knives that look like this before? Okay. Alright. If you've seen a knife that looks like this, it's Chicago. No other company looks like this. They all look the same. This is Chicago Cutlery right here. Very similar look. Wood handles, stainless steel, brass rivets, you're going to see it a lot. Now, by the way, the reason it's so prevalent is because, one, a lot of people just assume because of the name, Chicago is made in the U.S., and it's in stores, they're like, oh, sweet, it's made in the U.S., I want that stuff. And there's a lot of people just equate just because it's made in the U.S., it's better, which isn't even technically true, because, I mean, I don't care where it's made. It's got a wood handle, and it's got brass rivets and stainless steel. It's still not a good knife. And it hasn't been made in the U.S. in 12 years. It's been made in China for the last 12 years. And so, you know, a lot of people just assume because it's made in the U.S. and it's been around a while that it's good. It's really not. And I'll say this is actually one of the best signs. Like, my mom had a drawer full of Chicago knives when I started. Like, she had like probably 3 or 4 sets that she had bought over the years. And she just thought Chicago was like the bee's knees. She was like, oh, I love my Chicago. She's like, I never need to replace anything. But like, when you ask someone who owns Chicago to grab their favorite knife, I'm not exaggerating, you won't really know this until you do a demo with someone who does. A lot of time it takes like 50 to 100 strokes for them to be able to cut through the rope with that. And then you ask them to cut through the rope with your knife and they go through in like 2 strokes. You don't even need to say anything. They get it. They understand. But just don't ever bash on someone's knives, you guys. So like, they're like, oh, I've got Chicago, just so you know, we're probably not going to buy anything. It's like, oh yeah, Chicago's great. But yeah, no, we'll have a lot of fun. And just do the demo. And just do the demo and let Cutco speak for itself. Let them compare themselves. But this is Chicago. Now, by the way, once they started outsourcing, they started making their knives even cheaper. This is a Chicago knife as well. Partial tang, plastic handle, stainless steel. So plastic's a lot cheaper than wood, and it's just a totally different quality that you start to see now. But there is a lot of Chicago out there. Another brand that's really prevalent in this area is Pampered Chef. How many of you know what Pampered Chef is? Okay. There's a lot of it out there. If you don't know what Pampered Chef is, very similar to Cutco in the sense that they do appointments with people in their homes and they sell a bunch of kitchen stuff. Big difference, they do big parties when they do appointments. We do appointments one-on-one with our customers. And I'll say this, they've got a lot of sweet products. They got a lot of really cool stuff. Their knives are very low quality though. And if you look at a Pampered Chef knife, this is a Pampered Chef knife. And their knives come with a case, and the whole concept, the case has a sharpener built into it. And so you can sharpen it, you know, every time you're using it. Because the concept is you're supposed to sharpen it every time you use it. So they figured why not make it easy for people. I love the concept. Problem is they use a very poor sharpener that ruins the knife after like 2 or 3 years of regular use. And they use a very low quality stainless steel that wears out very quickly. And so if you look at them, you'll notice that there's like little rust spots on the steel starting to form. And if you ever look at a Pampered Chef knife that has been sharpened regularly for a few years, it gets like little waves in the blade because it's been like sharpened so many times, and the sharpener is just kind of, you know, it just is not that good of a sharpener, and so it actually a lot of times can damage the knife just from long-term usage. This is a Pampered Chef utility knife. This is a Pampered Chef paring knife right here. This is a paring knife from the dollar store. So. Yeah, the Pampered Chef paring knife blade actually will come out of the handle. So that's Pampered Chef. Farberware is another one. How many of you have heard of Farberware? Few of you have? Yeah, a lot of college students, when they first move out of their parents' house, go buy Farberware because it's the cheap stuff at Walmart. But they do sell it at Macy's too. They do sell it at Macy's. So. They have all kinds of different ones. This is a Farberware knife right here. That's one thing you'll notice about every one of these companies. They have like all different quality lines. You know, they make like really, really, really bad ones that are like super cheap. Then they make some that are like still bad but kind of like middle price. And they'll have some that are like a little better but they're more expensive. They have all kinds of different quality lines that they make because they try and like cater to every single category out there. Cutco, we just really only make one quality, and it's the best. And that's what it is, and that's all we focus on. So that's a Farberware knife that I just handed around. This is a Farberware knife right here as well. Some of those knives that I showed you guys yesterday, like this knife right here, also Farberware. It's got the fake rivets, fake partial tang, or fake full tang, things like that. So Farberware. TriStar is another one you'll see occasionally. TriStar is very similar to Farberware, and frankly, there's a lot of brands that are very similar to Farberware. This is a TriStar knife right here. You'll basically notice there's a lot of knives that all kind of look the same. Plastic handle, partial tang, stainless steel, serrated edge. Lots of them. There's lots and lots and lots of knives out there that look like that. TV knives, infomercial knives. Any knife that you see on an infomercial, I'm automatically going to throw it into this category. Especially if it's like 2 a.m. and you're watching some like knife infomercial. And they're, yeah, so just to show you a few, you guys ever seen Miracle Blade infomercials? Okay, if you watch Miracle Blade, this is Miracle Blade right here. Super cheap, super flimsy. I've had literally 2 of these break in training from kids just going like that. And it was like, snapped in half. So, and you can tell like right when you like feel it, it's really lightweight. It feels like there's almost nothing there. And it's kind of the opposite of the high quality stuff. High quality stuff you can tell is really made well. It's got some heft to it, it's probably not going to break. Low quality stuff is usually the opposite. This is another Miracle Blade knife. And it's like when you watch the infomercials too, they're like, see how nice and flexible that is? Isn't that great? And everyone in the audience is like, oh, that's awesome. You know, they market it like that's a really good feature to have on your knife, when really all it is just a low quality steel. But they market it like it's a good feature. This is Miracle Blade 2. This is also Miracle Blade 3. You can see like rust starting to form where the blade goes into the handle. Ronco. Any of you ever seen Ronco infomercials? Okay, Ronco, in terms of infomercial products, are literally the worst of the worst. Ronco, he's been selling like everything under the sun on infomercials for the kitchen, like the food dehydrators to like the rotisserie chicken turners, all of that stuff. That's Ronco. He's got the worst knives ever. I've got the whole set down here, but they're brand new. And if you look at this knife, I don't know if you guys can see it from the back, but you guys notice that the curve that this knife has? Okay. Not to mention the big gap in the handle. This is how they send a knife out, to show you like their quality standard of what they're okay sending to somebody. Now, by the way, like when you feel these knives, it's going to feel like it's kind of sharp. Well, any knife you buy, you guys, is sharp when you buy it. You can take it out of the package. A $3 knife off Walmart shelf is sharp when you take it out of the package. How long it stays that way is a lot different. So, anyways, Ginsu. Ginsu was like the original infomercial knife. That's a Ginsu knife right there. Now, in terms of the handle material, wood or plastic? In terms of the construction, usually most of them are a fake or a partial tang. You will notice some of the old Chicago knives had a full tang though. Those are about the only ones that you typically see with a full tang. The steel is typically a very cheap stainless steel. And by the way, the old Chicago knives, they use a low carbon stainless steel. So like if you try and like bend the old like Chicago knives, they're really solid because they use a low carbon stainless steel. And even a low carbon makes it really hard. Now, in terms of the edge that they use are typically always serrated. And occasionally you'll see like a straight edge on there, but most of the time, typically a serrated edge. Now it's interesting because if you look at the high quality brands,
Can be made in China.
mostly, you know, China, I mean, I just say overseas, China, Taiwan, Japan. Yeah, fake or partial tang is the construction there. Steel is cheap stainless, edge is serrated. But it's interesting, you look, high quality brands use almost always straight edges. Low quality brands use a lot of serrated edges. Why do you think they do that?
Because the serrated edge is going to cut, but it doesn't cut, you know, it's going to tear through whatever you're going through. So as long as, in the normal consumer's eye, as long as it cuts through it, they really don't care how clean the cut is.
Okay, that might be one reason. It's going to mask the dullness of the knife a little better. That's actually a good point. Any other reasons? Okay, maybe, sure. I don't even know if it is cheaper, actually. I don't know if it's technically cheaper than a straight edge. It might be, but I don't know if it is.
when you wear it out, you have to get new ones.
Yeah. How many times can you sharpen a serrated edge? You can't. What a better way to make sure your customers come back than to make it so they can't sharpen their knife? And so if you ever see a set where they're all serrated, it's a really, really high probability it's a very low quality set of knives. Now, in terms of how long do they last, or guaranteed, typically they don't have a guarantee. Now, if you watch the infomercial for Miracle Blade and 1Co, they actually say their knives are guaranteed forever. They also say their knives will stay sharp forever. I'm just going to tell you right now, any company that tells you their knife will stay sharp forever is just blatantly lying. It's physically impossible for a knife to stay sharp forever. However, the way they get away with guaranteeing their knives forever is there was Miracle Blade 1, Miracle Blade 2, Miracle Blade 3, there was Ginsu 2000, there's 1Co's 5-star Showtime Cutlery, now it's the 1Co 6-star Showtime Cutlery, and they have all these different numbers that they attach to the end, and they market it like it's the new version, when in reality Miracle Blade 1 was guaranteed forever, and they claimed bankruptcy about 4 years later. And right after that, they started a new company called Miracle Blade 2, which ironically had the exact same guarantee that also claimed bankruptcy about 4 or 5 years after that. So when they bankrupt that company, they no longer have to honor any guarantee that that company represented because it's no longer in business. And so it's just a loophole in the system of how they get through, guaranteeing it, because they bankrupt their company before most people will typically send their knives back. And so just understand that that's how they do that. In terms of how long they last, typically I would say 2 to 3 years. Now, will people keep knives in their drawers longer than that? Sure they will. A lot of times people keep knives in their drawers for years and years and years and years. Where they're working the way that they were supposed to when they were brand new, it's typically about 2 to 3 years. In terms of prices, typically you're looking at about $50 to about $200. And some Hamburg Chef in Chicago are actually going to be probably higher than that. But you can find a set of Chicago for like $80 to the $150 range too. There's some that are $300 or $400, and there's also, Ronco's like $60, Miracle Blade's like $120. So it's going to be somewhere in that range at that point. And the reason I'm only putting one price is because typically they don't even have small sets. Their sets are a lot of time like a full set, and it's just super cheap. Ronco is like $60 for the whole set, and they give you another whole set for free. And so it's just cheap. But so that's low quality stuff. This is what you're going to see a lot of the time. Now, then there's also junk knives, and these are a lot of time the knives that you're going to see at Walmart. And a lot of times they don't even have a brand name on the knife. Sometimes they'll just say stainless China or stainless Taiwan or something like that. And for like a larger knife like this size, you guys, what does it usually go for? Yeah, I'd say like $8-10 typically. It kind of depends on which one it is, and there's sometimes small ones that are only a few bucks. But let's say the knife costs $10. Realistically, how long is the knife gonna last? 2 weeks. It might last longer than 2 weeks. Let's be conservative. Let's say it lasts 2 years. Okay, let's be conservative. Well, how long do people use knives in their life? Yeah, and I think most of you guys agree. Would you say 40 years is pretty fair? Let's say from 25 to 65, you're actually engaged in cooking. You guys say that's pretty realistic? All right. Well, if you're cooking or using knives, purchasing knives for 40 years of your life, and you replace that knife every 2 years, that's still 20 replacements over the course of your life. So that's still $200 alone for the one knife. And you can't realistically look at only one knife though, because most people only have one knife. Like even most bachelors will have like 2 or 3 knives in their drawer, let alone a family that's cooking a lot. Think about a lot of families, how many knives are in their drawers? A lot. A lot of times they got a whole bunch of knives, sometimes they got a whole drawer of knives. And so let's say they've got 5 knives that they're actually doing this with. Well, even at that point, if they're only doing it with 5 knives, that's still $1,000 right there. That's also not including any steak knives. Most families buy a set or 2 or 3 of steak knives over their life. Right? That's also not including any inflation. This price is going to go up at all in the next 40 years. Probably quite a bit. So it's well over $1,000 to buy the cheapest knives in the world over a lifetime. Now, $1,000 is really not that crazy split up over 40 years. It literally breaks down to $2 a month. A lot of you spend more than that on like gum and you don't think anything about it, right? And mints and cigarettes and everything else, and you don't think anything about it. So the $1,000 over a lifetime really isn't that much. The crazy thing to me is that's the worst knife that you can possibly buy. You hate it every time you use it. It doesn't even work well. When you could have probably spent the same amount of money to buy one or two of these good sets and actually took care of it and actually really enjoyed the product every time you used it, but spent the same amount. That's what's kind of crazy to me. Now, you think about it though, why does Henkel's and Wusthof and Shun cost literally like 10, 15 times more than these junk knives? Yeah. Do you guys agree it's a better product? Significantly. It's made a lot better. Do you think this costs more to make than this? Absolutely it does. It costs a lot more to make this than this. And would you guys agree it's probably at least twice as good as this? Now, by the way, it's not even twice the price. It's only like 15 times the price. That's pretty normal. There's a lot of products out there. It's like those white chairs, brand new, 20 bucks a piece. Red chairs, brand new, $200 a piece. Now, if you've gone from a white chair to a red chair, is it at least twice as good as sitting in one of those white chairs? Right? It definitely costs twice the price, though. I mean, I play guitar. You know, it's like you can buy a $70 guitar at Walmart. You can do it. But it'll, like, go out of tune in, like, 5 minutes. And in, like, 2 years, it's going to have all kinds of weird issues that guitars don't have. It's going to, like, start bowing in the neck. And you'll probably throw it away in, like, 3 years. Now, you can also go to Guitar Center and buy, like, a nice Taylor or a Martin and spend $2 grand. But you'll probably literally give it to your kids in 4 years. And every single time you play it, you know it sounds amazing. You feel great owning it because you know it's a quality instrument. But you're also comparing $70 to $2 grand. There's a big difference, right? But it's at least twice as good. Now, look at how Cutco matches up to Wusthof and Henkel's for a moment. You know, our handle, you know, is thermal resin better than polypropylene and laminated wood? Yeah. It's dishwasher safe, which would you say that's a big deal to a lot of people? Yeah, that is, definitely. So, yeah, it definitely is more. Does that cost more to make thermal resin than wood or plastic? Yeah, if you remember from yesterday, it's 5 times more expensive than wood. It's 10 times more expensive than plastic. So yeah, it costs a lot more for thermal resin than wood or polypropylene. How's our construction compare? Does it cost more to put the universal wedge lock handle on our knife? Yeah. Does it cost more to use nickel silver rivets? Yeah. It costs more. And is it better? Yeah. You know, is our steel more expensive than theirs? Sure. You know, and they use good steel. We have really great steel. Does it cost more to put the double D edge on our knives? Right? There's a reason we literally never even bothered to renew the patent. Because, you guys, I mentioned it briefly yesterday. When they grind the double D edge, it's a wheel covered with diamond, like, specks. And every single wheel costs $9,000. And they've got a different wheel for every single knife that we make. And they have to replace every single one of those wheels, like, every few months. Every, like, 3 to 5 months, they're having to buy a new one. The machine that puts the concave grind on the edge costs $200,000. When I went to the factory, they had replaced it 14 times in the last 2 years because the machine just wears out from making the knives. It costs a lot of money to make Cutco. And, you know, it costs more to make Cutco than any other brand in the world. You know, but again, why is it worth it to put the double D edge on there?
Actually stay sharp.
Yeah, stay sharp 7 to 10 years. They don't have to sharpen it every time they use it for it to work well. How's our guarantee?
Spectacular.
You know, you're comparing a forever guarantee to a defects only guarantee. What does defects only really cover? Nothing. Does it cost a lot of money to guarantee a product forever? Think about it. Forever, it costs a lot of money. Because is Cutco going to wear out eventually? Yeah, it will. 30, 40, 50 years, and they have to send them a brand new knife. Forever. That costs a lot. So, yeah. And now, how long is Cutco going to last your customer?
7 to 10 years.
That's how long it stays sharp. How long are they gonna have their knives?
Lifetime,
They
forever.
have them the rest of their life. Right? Yeah, and plus they're kids. It's gonna outlive them. So, would you guys agree Cutco is at least twice as good as these? Right? And by the way, even if we are identical in terms of construction, but we just had a forever guarantee, I'd say we'd still be at least twice as good. Just because we're guaranteed forever. Even if we weren't any better on any other level, let alone every single level. So, does it make sense that Cutco should be at least twice the price? Right? Cut. Now, do customers have to buy everything at one time? No. They can get whatever they want. That's what's cool about it. Plus, they can split it up on payments and make it a lot more affordable for themselves too that way. Now, if, let's say Cutco doesn't exist, and let's say you're like mega wealthy, super financially, you're set for life, and you wanted to go into a store and get a set of knives for yourself. Knowing what you know about knives right now, which brand would you probably buy? Right? Yeah, probably one of these. Probably one of the good ones. It's probably going to work better. You know it's going to work better. It's going to last longer. What about people who know nothing about knives, though? What do you think they end up buying?
Wherever someone refers.
Yeah, whatever the person says.
Here's what I've noticed. A lot of people don't buy the worst, and a lot of people don't buy the best. A lot of people feel comfortable getting something kind of in the middle. Do you think there's ever anyone that goes into a store and sees a set of Sean that's like $2,000, and they go into Target and see a set that's $100, and they're like, let's go with the one that's $1,900 less. Do you think that happens? Happens all the time, guys. That's what happens most of the time. So if you're going to ask me what you're going to come across most of the time when you're in someone's house, this is primarily what you're going to be seeing most of the time when you're doing an appointment. Now, that's a really positive thing, by the way, because like when you're comparing these knives to Cutco, a lot of times they're like drooling over Cutco because they've never seen anything like it. Now, a couple of you had made that comment, what if they own some good knives? Guys, I made the mistake. I told you I'd tell you some of the mistakes I made when I was a new rep. That was one of them. There was people I came across who had some really good knives. I just automatically was like, oh crap, they're not going to buy. And like I totally just didn't think they were going to buy because they'd spent all this money already on a good set of knives. You got to realize these are a lot of times the best customers you'll ever have for a few reasons. One, they're obviously the type of person who appreciates good cutlery. And they're willing to spend the money to own good cutlery. That's a good thing to know. Also, they're the type of person who's willing to spend the money to own the cutlery, but the guarantee is the big one. Because a lot of time, even these people know that they'll probably replace their knives. And so when they realize they can be done forever, if they just do this once, a lot of time that makes more sense for them. If you ask, I was talking to Kyle Kerfoot the other day, he's like, I've never actually had someone who owned Wusthofer ankles that didn't buy Cutco. Like, it never had it happen. And again, even if they don't buy a set, we make a lot of unique pieces that maybe they don't have that they might want to add to the collection. So they could still be a great customer, even if they don't get a set, they could still be a good customer. So don't prejudge someone if they have a great set of knives and think they're not going to want Cutco. A lot of times they end up being some of the best customers because they're obviously the type of person who appreciates nice things in the kitchen. And that's a good thing to know. So, now let me ask you this. If I gave each of you $1,000 right now, and you could go out, and you could spend it on anything you wanted, how many of you would run out and spend it all on one set of knives for yourself? Okay. Yeah, no one. None of you would actually probably do that at this point in your life. There's a lot of things you'd probably spend your money on over a set of knives at this point in your life, right? But think about what people are typically shopping in like Williams-Sonoma or like a nice kitchen store. Like what age of people are typically shopping in those stores?
Moms and dads.
Yeah, right? Moms, dads, age-wise, typically. Right? Yeah, typically 30s plus. You don't see a lot of college students running around in those stores looking at like the new bakeware that just came out. They're just not really too concerned about it. What about home improvement stores? Who's typically shopping in those stores? Yeah, I'd say like again, and by the way, usually are they homeowners or renters? A lot of times they're homeowners, people who rent their home. I've never met a bunch of college students that like, we're like, yeah, we're pitching in, we're going in on a deck to build on the back of the dorm room. They just don't do that kind of stuff. They don't care. And that's just not how they want to spend their money. And, families do spend $100 to $200 here and there all the time for things in their house. All the time. Okay? And by the way, they spend $1,000 plus on some of the nicer things they put in the house. All the time. And that's sometimes hard for like someone between the age of like 18 and 25 to comprehend spending casually. You know, because sometimes, you know, a 19-year-old gets a $30 parking ticket, and it's literally a crisis. Like, I can't pay my cell phone bill now. You know, they're like pissed because they got a $30 parking ticket. Whereas like a family's crisis is like, crap, the AC just went out. It's gonna be $1,500. And they view that the same way that student views a $30 parking ticket. Okay? Well, because think about average income. You got to look at this, and you have to consider this. Average family makes $50,000 a year. Actually, in the Treasure Valley, average family makes $55,000 a year. That's the average annual income in the Treasure Valley. Average student working part-time makes about $5,000 a year. And by the way, there's a lot of students that make less than that. This is average. So you think about that. Average family makes over 10 times what you make. They're in a different spot, right? You think about for a family, let's just look at our average order. Average order is $250. Well, shoot, get out my compact calculator here. So, $5,000. If you're to spend $250 right now out of your pocket, if you make $5,000 a year, that's literally 5% of your annual income. That's a pretty big chunk of your annual income if you think about it, for just an impulse thing to buy. For a family to spend $250 out of their annual income, it's literally less than it's literally less than 0.5%. It's a big difference. Do you agree?
Yeah.
Now, by the way, you can split this up on a 3-pay, and it's like $80. At that point, you're literally looking at less than like 1/3% of their annual income. Would you say that's pretty affordable for a family?
Yeah.
Okay? That's really affordable, you guys. So just keep that in mind. And, you know, and by the way, you guys still spend money on things that's crazy to other people. Do me a favor. I want you to think about something. I want you to write something down. I want you to write this down on a piece of paper really quick. What's something that you spent a lot of your personal money out of your own pocket, not your mom and dad's money or whatever, money out of your own pocket,